So not only did they bring back SLF Theater, which hasn't been around for a few months, I'm pretty sure. I don't remember the exact amount of time, but I'm pretty sure it's been like 10 to 12 weeks. And they brought it back in a hilarious way because essentially I was getting the heebie-jeebies. I was like, God damn, is Costco like talking to some weird guy on a chat room? I was thinking of the one South Park episode where Cartman's talking to someone and he says something along the lines of, "Hello, Hung Daddy, how are you?" And I'm like, the voice changer and the questions just seem sus, and then it turns out that it was Sunraku, and I say, oh, no longer creepy. But we were committing war crimes this week. Sadly, we don't get to see them, but in passing, they explain that Amane is, she's quite the menace when she plays a villain. According to them, she played Jenga with a building with 2,000 NPC lives. And that is hilarious. I'm just imagining her laughing like a maniac, shooting like lasers or fireballs, and breaking apart pieces of the building one after the other. The towers, the buildings like swaying. People are, oh my god, Mom, I'm gonna fall. And she's just probably laughing. She was made for this role, and I am here for the chaos. Want to see my full thoughts, so support my work. We got the Patreon. Full account live reactions available exclusively over there if you're so interested. It's interesting, though, because I've had, I think it was 3 people? 2 or 3 people, anyway, who mentioned how, like, oh my god, if he was so worried about a mule in the, in Shangri-La, he's gonna hate, seeing what she's gonna end up doing. And I don't get that at all. I'd be right there with her. If I had a game like this, yeah, I'd be doing the exact same thing as apparently she is. I'd go for the absolute chaos. The difference of a game like SLF is you're trying to actually get connected to the NPCs because they interact with you and they treat you as if they're your friend, your companion. When you log into a match of this game, you're playing a villain and you know the role. It's like playing any game that allows you to be a villain. I'm not treating it as such. So it's a very different mindset, in my opinion. The thing that I like is that there's a lot more to this game than even I was first giving credit. And I gave credit last week. But I like how thoughtful it is for a lot of different things. So the first match we see is, of course, a hero versus villain. But what happens if 2 people pick 2 heroes? Well, then, of course, there's other villains, NPC villains. And I'm sure it's the same thing. If you both pick villains, then there'll be NPC heroes. And it's very cool seeing what they did because while, of course, Sunraku does get a victory, I like how they're implying there's so much more to what we're about to experience. It was interesting, though, because last week, there was 2 characters that, in my opinion, made sense for Sunraku to play. There was this one futuristic, like, ninja-looking character, and then, of course, the old man. Apparently, a lot of people didn't expect him to play the old man, which was interesting to me, because I thought it had the most, like, swordplay level design that we've come to know him as a character would use. So, yeah, I mean, we see he's very good with it, and I think the one that he ends up playing when he goes up against Kaso is probably not going to be for him. It's mostly kicks and stuff. Like, it's cool to play as, but I don't see him using that in an actual match. It's more of, let's see how this girl, who's apparently very, very skilled and is kind of similar in mentality to Sunraku in terms of how she fights, if, this current lava build that he's using is going to be enough to beat her. Because now we're building into next episode where we are going to see the match from 3 years ago, where I assume our boy loses, and it's going to be interesting what they do. Someone pointed out that there's actually a game in our own world similar to this design, which I completely forgot about. I do remember it. It's just, it got buried in my mind. I forget the exact name, but it's like DC Universe Online, where, there's similar ideas where you have to do heroic tasks and villain tasks. And I completely forgot that game existed. Stuff like that is really cool because it's still fun in our own world, and I can think of stuff like, Batman Arkham Asylum style game, but you either play as, like, Batman villains or you play as Batman, Robin, stuff like that. Like, they obviously tried to do that one Batman game recently where you play as 4 heroes, but if I'm looking at it as, like, an actual, like, design with the single player in mind and different things like that, I think there's ways to make it work. It's just sadly the current version of Rocksteady and how management is not really letting them cook in the way that they could. I can think of stuff like Insomniac Spider-Man, same thing. You could play as Spider-Man or Miles, Gwen, different things like that, and then different Spider-Man characters. And you can see how you could have like an almost single-player level design. And yeah, you do the heroic or villain tasks while also fighting each other. Or, as we see in this episode, if you find the cube, you immediately win. Just different things like that. There's ways to make it work, but at the end of the day, if you have VR, it's guaranteed to be 10 times more fun, even if it's poorly designed, because you're going to at least feel like you're doing it. It's a lot different, because if the game design is not I really feel like I'm swinging around like Spider-Man. I really feel like I'm gliding like Batman. The graphics, the way it all works, then you're just pressing buttons on a controller. Even if the graphics are shit in VR, at least you're feeling like you're doing it to some degree. So the game has a lot more luxury to just be like, oh, it's naturally going to work better in their world than it will ours. But it's not to say this type of game design doesn't exist in our world, but it's interesting how the author takes it and elevates it and say, damn, if only we get 10, 20 years from now, we're really going to have shit like this pop off. And I just really like that about it. The fights were really fun, though. We had a couple. And obviously, it's cool to see the design because immediately you just look at it and you say, Shangri-La who? Like, that's my immediate reaction. Like, I do still prefer Shangri-La as a game. And if I was in this world, SLF would be my main game, 100%. They've shown me nothing that would change that opinion. But when it does come to this game, this is the one that I was like, if there's any other game I would play, it would be this one. It may be like I get hooked on it for a couple weeks at a time, then I go back to SLF for a couple months. But at the end of the day, everything about this just speaks to me. I like the visuals of it. Everything about it looks like a comic book comes to life. And I actually really appreciate how each character really does feel well built and developed. And I think because of that, there's a lot less uncertainties when it comes to when you're going into a tournament. Because things where you can completely customize stats and stuff like that, like a Pokemon tournament as an example, there's so many ways to change what you think a thing's going to be at face value, this Pokemon's build's going to be. Where with something like this, where you have like something like an Overwatch where you pick a character, right? At the end of the day, you know what the characters are capable of. Yes, the player can surprise you and subvert expectations, but it's not like you can change gear and you have to combat all that thing. So I think it does help in that way, but it doesn't change the fact that a talented player like a Sun Rocker who's unpredictable, or apparently this girl that probably beat our boy's ass 3 years ago, is an anomaly enough that they're gonna make it mess around and find out. Great episode though. I think it's understandable why people were so hyped for this arc. They're already laying the breadcrumbs, such as our girl being a terrorist in this game and just absolutely loving it. And sadly, I think we're going to have to wait until next season to probably see her chaos in action. But as long as they give me passing remarks like, she played Jenga with 2,000 NPC lives, it's pretty great. You know how our devs for SLF will be like, damn it, they beat another monster. How could they do this? I'm imagining the devs for this game being like, should we call the authorities or something? Like, what the fuck? It's just funny, man. I really like what they're doing with this. It's absolutely fun. It's different. And honestly, I don't miss SLF. As much as I love the big bosses we're building into, stuff like this is the core thing about the show, is that we watch the characters play games. And I completely understand why Katsuo was, originally saying that he was just doing SLF as a break, because a game like this, I understand why you would dedicate so much time to it. Of course, those are my feelings. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down below. Leave a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new around here. Of course, ring that bell. And like I mentioned, we got those full live reactions over on Patreon. And hey, while you're over there, I'll also give you a video shout out. So today we got Italia Farkas, 4-6, Andrew Thomas, No Name Needed, Cuds, Doc, Tyrun, Danny Boy, Simon Lau, and we also have Miguel Martinez. So I appreciate the support, everyone. Please take care. Y'all have a good one.